Good morning out there, all you germs ladies and lots and everything else. Welcome to what should have been, I think I should have called the Sleepy Sunday Rainy Morning Show, but we're going to get through this together and stuff, right? But today is 8:49 in the AM on 8/20, that is August 20, 2023. And I've destroyed some dollar boxes, guys. I've destroyed a few of them, and so there's some fun stuff in here and some old school stuff in here. And speaking of old school, on this channel, I am I do consider myself an old school comic book collector, right? Meaning I read a lot of this stuff. I get a bit scholarly sometimes. I like looking at the big picture. I like tracking careers, if you will, who's jumping back and forth, who's continuing storylines from Alpha Flight to Fantastic Four to something else and things like that. Follow a writer, a little bit of an art to it, right? And also from an era when, I consider comic books to have elevated itself to a high art and how we have seen the decline of it and stuff, right? And that's just a man reporting the weather. I didn't make it rain. I just told you it rained and stuff, right? So I found some fun stuff. And as I get older and getting more of an open mind and things like that, filling up these runs and everything like that, I've really opened myself up to a lot of the back issues and some fun stuff. Good morning, John Jones. What's up, dude? Good morning. As always, good to see you. Right? Uh-oh. Right away, I'm freezing up. There we go. I think we're back. I froze up there. Good morning. Good to see you, Michael. Good morning. See if we can get through this little bump in the road here. So I have some dollar boxes. Now, the reason I haven't done a show, and I know it's only been a few weeks and stuff, but basically we have been to Carowinds and had a fantastic time. I believe we got, if you go to Carowinds, it's right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, sort of on the state line with North Carolina, South Carolina. Um, anyway, we got something like 12 roller coasters in today, and I only pussed out on the first one where I kept my eyes shut. There's one that kind of gets me a little bit. And then after that, we had another trip with the family, and then this past Friday night I had a fantastic time in Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee, right on the state line. With some work friends, and we ended up going to see Everclear, the great 90s band. If you know old Art and everything like that. This was the second time in a year that I've seen him. He is 61 years old, has multiple sclerosis, and he and the band that he has, from when I saw them last year to this last Friday, so tight, so good. It's just amazing to be able to see improvement like that. And they didn't suck when I saw them last year. You know what I'm saying? Had a great time and ended up getting like 6 drinks. I don't think I've drunk like that since in about 7 or 8 years, and had a good time. No hangover. So let me know how this is going on the live stream. I keep freezing up. So are you guys still there? Can you still see me? Because we're about to show some comics and stuff, right? So that was basically it. Carowinds, family trips. Getting the best out of the summer here, and then seeing Everclear last night. And as always, like, subscribe, sub. And also, you can see these pictures on Instagram that I put up every now and then. Howler Mouse on Instagram. A link should pop up on the rerun here in the bottom there, or just type in Howler Mouse. And if you're lucky enough, you can go to my actual YouTube page, and there still should be a link to Facebook if you want to friend me there. I'm getting to where I don't put, if I have a photo dump, I do it more on Facebook than Instagram. If you're interested, man, it'd be great to see everybody there. Not freezing on my end. Thank you. So I'm going to move on. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so it's been a couple weeks. If you know about the Fossil Show on Graphic Man's channel, he called it. We did one last show. He's taking a break for some to take care of himself. And on that show, Captain Strangeliffe was on. So for you newbies who don't know, Captain Strangeliffe on the 27th of this month, he's going to be doing sort of an anniversary show, if you will. He sent me a link last week. Not a link, but he gave me a heads up last week and asked me to drop by, maybe pop on there and stuff, because he is the godfather. I think it's his 14th year I did this in 2000. I started in 2010 or 11, and he was there a couple years before. He's actually the guy that found me to let me know there was a community on here, and he is the godfather of this community. As big as it has gotten, with its little cliques, with their little award show, with these bigger channels who read the comics for you, with these bigger channels that do the speculating, this place has grown from like a handful of like 80 people who all knew each other. That is people who were watching, commenting, and doing all this stuff. And we laid the groundwork for, and it's not humble brag, and this is real. We did some of the first shows, roundtable shows, and all this stuff, and a bunch of people. And there's a handful of us there. That's why I was kind of laughing. Not only am I an old school collector, like I was mentioning, I'm also an old school YouTuber now. That's funny. I've made jokes about being a dinosaur and stuff, and that's all right. So I'm fine with that. I like coming in and just like, hey, here's what I bought, and maybe I'll start doing some history, comic book history and reviews again. I don't know. I don't know. But on that show, it felt so old school and stuff like that, because Strange Life will sit there and pop up a classic little book, and he pulled up one. Now, if it's Creature from the Black Lagoon, if it's cavemen, if it's Bigfoot, I am so there, right? So he showed off this Adventure Comics number 427. Yeah, 427, with just a fantastic horror cover there with little dinosaur animals and stuff like that, and everything or whatever, and the big creature in the back, right? So I joked around and I was like, "Oh, it will be mine. It will be mine." And just for shits and giggles, I sat there and got on eBay and just typed it in and stuff, and it came up, and I found one that was actually pretty cheap. And when, as always with eBay, I always just sort of save it instead of starting to bid on it, and it never fails. I end up getting a little alert saying that everybody that is watching this item, here's your discount. You have 24 hours. Ended up getting this for $2. Just sometimes just a cover is enough to get you. I love this thing, right? And also, where it's Adventure Comics, you can obviously tell that it's Silver Age in the 70s and stuff. No Spectre, no Aquaman, no Superman, no Supergirl, right? Looks like it's just an all-out horror issue. And I'm going to tell you, in the Silver Age, when it comes to DC Comics, I am all over almost anything they have that actually wasn't heroes. Jack Kirby's Fourth World, even though he played around with Jimmy Olsen and Superboy, Kong, Stalker, just some Wally Wood, Steve Ditko, Paul Levitz, just some fun stuff they have. House of Mystery, Witching Hour, House of Secrets, Plot. DC had a lot of great stuff, but Marvel definitely had a handle on the superhero things, and some little bit of horror here and there, right? But yeah, there we go. The coffee's kicking in, right? I have cut back on the coffee to where like maybe I'm drinking 2 cups a week to stop drinking caffeine, and so it's just perfect for me to sit here and do this and just get all jacked up, right? So something I am going to collect, and I'm going to have to really buckle down and just go ahead and buy these, even though I refuse to get real pricey. Is I picked this up a few months ago, right? IDW 2014. They have a lot of licensed properties: Transformers, Turtles, X-Files, on and on. And I've been collecting the Topps Comics 1990s run of X-Files, because apparently I'm very forgiving. They're actually pretty good if you like X-Files, right? But anyway, as time goes by and these licenses for these properties get tossed around, they ended up doing some really cool crossovers. I remember there was a Contagion one, and this is a conspiracy one. Pretty much the lone gunman from the X-Files is leading this one, and they get some. The whole concept is somebody has sent them a whole bunch of zip files, and they're encrypted. And as they unencrypt them, they say a big conspiracy about they're getting shots of newspapers from 2 weeks in the future where there's this horrible disease coming. We'll just leave it there, right? And also in those files, the clues are things that might be urban legends. They treat these properties like X-Files. Like, is this real? Are they urban myths, legends, or people? What's the explanation behind them? And they end up investigating those files, and it's Ghostbusters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Transformers, and The Crow. So I popped these out, and these are fun. If you can see that, that's a turtle's hand, in their dossier, if you will. And apparently it has bookends, 2 bookends, right? And this one's ripped. That's why I got it out of the dollar box. I just kind of wanted to check it out and look, but this is the first book in, and it's really fantastic, right? So yeah, now that I've checked it out for cheap, I think I'm willing to get the rest of them and check it out. Just really fun. Just a bunch of one-shot shots with a book in of a complete story. And it doesn't really feel nostalgic. That's what's wild. It's not high art. It's not high-end writing, but it's solid. It's fun, right? Cool, man. And speaking of 90s nostalgia, I don't know what's going on here, but maybe it's where I was a kid and I would run across older guys. My stepdad and uncle had their comic books in the house, and then you would be at other people's houses. And even if people didn't really collect comic books, they would sort of be fans of old TV shows. So you had those old Dale and a few Gold Key where they had photo covers, right? For your My Man from Uncle and things like that, right? And I picked up some of these at the Hillsville Flea Market a couple of months ago, and I totally picked them up because I got a whole bunch of them for like $2 or $3 or something, right? And then I found some more in these dollar boxes. Now these dollar boxes stuff that I'm showing you here right now, all of this came to $25. The guy gave me a deal, so I don't know. There might be like, I don't know, 35, 36 books or something, right? But anyway, I went through and there's a few more that he has. I may go back because I don't see anybody really jumping all over these. One or two of these are doubles, right? But Roy Thomas is writing these, right? Now, you understand Roy Thomas, right? If I'm sure a lot of people that watch this channel don't need me to explain Roy Thomas, right? But Roy Thomas is the guy who was, I think he was like a high school teacher. He actually read these books. He came in. He's going to be the next coming of Stan Lee when it came to Marvel and running Marvel and all this stuff. And when you got a comic book from him, right? He was king of continuity. Everything had to fit in together and make sense. He and Mark Grunwald probably are neck and neck with who's Mr. Continuity and explaining everything, number one. But he also is the guy that brought in Conan to Marvel. And what I found out here recently is that instead of typing out a plot and adapting these, doing adaptations of these stories, he actually got the book, got a highlighter or whatever they had in 1969 and 70, and he would highlight parts of the books and hand them to the artist, and the artist would have to use the Marvel method to draw those stories out. So he knows a thing or two about fantasy and things, right? So I got interested in these Topps books from the 90s, which I totally passed up when they came out because he's doing Xena. And we all know where Sam Raimi went. This was a Sam Raimi show, and he had his brother in the show, his offshoot of Hercules. And I had 2, 3 friends that were hardcore fans of these shows. It was nothing to, they're syndicated, so it was nothing for me to show up on a Saturday, like, hey man, you ready to go? And he's like, yeah, when this goes off, now that I'm sitting here thinking, I think of some other shows that were syndicated, and we're going to stay on point. That's how this works, I'm in my buddy Richard's apartment in 1990. Let me think. We feel 1996 or 7, and I'm filling the shows he's watching. Yeah, he's all into the syndicated stuff. Anyway, so yeah, I read them. I sort of enjoyed them. They have great pinups in each one of them. Well, a few of them, and that just kind of makes it fun. Plus, it's Jim Salicrup of the editor on Spider-Man when Todd McFarlane and David Michelinie hit really big. So yeah, we got some of these. Excuse me. So yeah, I pinned it by Jim Silk, whoever this was and stuff, right? But very cool photo covers. Like I said, it's very nostalgic for me. Gabrielle. Yeah, I watched a few of them. Like I said, most of these are written by Roy Thomas. Dave Stevens cover, right? Dave Stevens of Rocketeer fame, pinup girl art, if you will, and stuff. So really, this was another reason I picked it up, because I saw the signature, I saw the style of art, and I was like, is that Dave Stevens? And I always forget that he made it into the later 90s. Of course, he passed away. So a great Dave Stevens cover. Zero issue. This may be the one that started it all off at Topps. And a lot of Lucy Lawless there. Olympics. These are little storylines. There's a series of miniseries from what I can tell. Who's that one? Aaron Lopresti. Okay. And Therese Nelson. Some people I don't know. I have one here that's got I'm pretty sure it was an Adam Hughes pinup that I showed when I got the first lot of these. So that's fantastic. Fun stuff. Fun. That's what this is about, right? And I know some people may roll their eyes and stuff, but I think I can handle myself. I don't think I'm going to take you to church with what I'm about to say here, but Um, I kind of get off on like people can do what they do, live and let live. People have their styles. And then there's things where it puts a black eye on the whole hobby and it actually will run people off. And then you got to get into the thing about they're adults and you know what they say about a fool and their money. They're quickly separated, whatnot, what do. And then sometimes it affects your collecting, right? Because of misinformation, right? And I'm really not down with the speculation that has taken over a lot of the hobby for some people, for a big section, and that it has taken over so much. The greed and the investment and the ignorance has bled into trying to get other books, not just for me. And I'm going to give you the perfect example, right? Trying to get a little bit of Gru, get the Gru, the Wonder of Comics. And I remember about a year or two ago, my buddy Scott Connor was all happy because he finally completed it. And he was like, damn, that 120, the last issue of the epic Gru comic. He said, man, that 120 is almost impossible to find. And I'm thinking last issue, low print run, who knows, whatever. He didn't really get into it. So I started doing a little research, digging into it. And if you go by eBay and everything like that, you're going to pay an arm and a leg, maybe a part of your soul. And if you have a testicle or two, you might end up giving up one. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So I go to legitimate places that price comics. On my comic book realm is the first one that pops into my head and stuff, right? It's a $3 or $4 book, but you go to eBay and people are saying low print run and are giving reasons and stuff, right? And I've watched this off and on for a few months, right? So it's not true. The book is only worth $3 or $4, and people are flat out lying, or they're misinformed, or they're shilling people. You know what I mean? It's a con, right? But then I go through some dollar boxes here, and I find these two books, and I can't remember. Maybe I paid $2 a piece for these. I could be wrong. I don't know. But this is like my third or fourth set of this. But this is Future Imperfect, right? Peter David, early 90s, George Perez. If you love Mad Max, this is your thing. And this is the first appearance of the Maestro. So if you're into speculation, or if you really want this series cheap, you've shown up at the right place, right? 2 issues back to back. It's a classic. It's fantastic. It's a solid read. It holds up. It doesn't feel dated because it takes place in an apocalyptic future. That could be at any time. And it's first appearance of the evil version of Hulk as he's older and stuff. And Marvel over the last 2 years have had a retro miniseries coming in where they pulled Peter David back, and we've told the tales of how the Hulk actually transformed into the Maestro and took over the world that's left and all that stuff, right? So I find those for $2 a piece. I get on eBay just to play around to check them out because I know how much the first issue is worth. And I get on there and I'm finding sets of this for $2 a piece, $8 a piece. Here's number one for $1.99 and things like that. It's a $40 book, people. The first Future Imperfect number one is a $40 book. It's the first appearance of Maestro. People in the know are picking these up out of the dollar boxes and off eBay a little bit and stuff, all because the speculation channels. This is what I always do. I'll see what they're doing when people are looking for Biker Mice from Mars and willing to pay a lot for it. I'm over here checking out some other books I need and getting them on the cheap. So people are losing a lot of money and finding out those books as investments. It's the 90s all over again in the details, just not in the execution, right? So I'm getting $40 books for, we'll say, $2 a piece, and people are paying an arm and a leg for a $3 book on eBay. So congratulations to the speculation book. Please, people, but please take a minute and do your research and get out of that stuff, right? You're going to have a lot more fun. All right. As I said, little Jimmy Fireball, love that handle. Good morning, and we got the Skullatorium popped in. Fantastic, man. Right. So let's look at a few other things here. Right. It cracks me up with these Marvel Age books, and because we didn't have them, they were not on the newsstand. Marvel Age was sold in comic book shops as preview issues and stuff, right? And they were super cheap, 35 cents, 75 cents. These were always cheaper than the books that were coming out. And it's a checklist of books coming out with the date, interviews, sometimes a 2-page spread of Fred Hembeck, little cartoon and stuff. And they started out in the early 80s. This is from 89. They made it to the early 90s. They were there for a while. And I didn't realize, I would, every now and then one of my friends would have one, but it was like a preview issue. You didn't think these were really collectible. And then every now and then they would have an interview or something, right? So, as a guy who loves comic scene, a guy who loves Amazing Heroes and Wizard and Heroes Illustrated and a lot of these mags, fanzines, and stuff that came out that reported news in the 90s and 80s and late 70s, I love going back and getting this. Little did I know that some of these Marvel Age books would be collectible, right? And at the same time, we have a Howard Chaykin cover announcing a Fury and Wolverine book that was coming out. And that's a little bit of to me, it looks like kind of like throwaway art. That's why it didn't feel like a big deal. You know what I mean? Like it was bare basics on what this is, and here's the purpose of it with a little entertainment. Um, Little did we know that we would grow up. I was 16 when this came out. Never laid eyes on it and stuff, but I have quite a collection of Marvel Age, and I had a few that I carried around. David Muschicelli, Daredevil cover, things like that. And a couple of these, some of these have actually become collectible and stuff. But I like going back and doing the nostalgia. I really do. Seeing and then having the idea of when these books actually were released versus when I bought them off the newsstand. You figure out real quick that shipping dates weren't in concrete. So don't trust these, right? But yeah, the nostalgia that comes from these now, even though I didn't buy these as they came out, but the information inside lines up with my memories. It's very cool. That's a very cool thing. You feel like some foreign language might have a word for that, even though they don't know, right? All right. The Xenos look great. I overlooked them back in the day. I will say, with what I flipped through and what little I read of a previous stack I got, they're just fun. They're exactly what you think they would be. You know what I mean? If you're a fan of the character of Xena and Gabrielle and some of the things that are in the show, I watched a few. Like I said, I had my friends that watched it more than me. I remember the yell, her battle cry, her yodel, and things like that. The underlying wish that they were like lesbians and things like that, even though Xena was sleeping with Hercules and stuff. But anyway, and now here's another book that I go back and forth, and I'm not going to like hearken and complain or anything like that. But I think it's kind of funny. I couldn't find these for years, right? If you saw my last haul, I bought. I'm missing one issue, but I got the original Who's Who in the DC universe, right? Because I still have mine. Right, they're probably in a box right here that you can see in this room that I haven't touched in a week or two. Probably covered up by that penguin you're seeing here. That's a poster of the Batman 1966 show Villains that I've had since 2001 or two that I've yet to frame. Anyway, but when I was a kid, I absolutely loved getting the reference material to get the answers I needed, like what happened here, who's this character. I've been reading comics as a kid, so as these came out, this was a big part of the '80s with me. I loved reading these. I was that guy who loved reading my Dungeons and Dragons books, monster manuals, Legends of Lore, Dexterity, the stats. Trying to figure all this stuff out. So amazing. So when the official handbook of the Marvel Universe in 1989 did a set of updates, you couldn't find the last one, and it was because Venom was on the cover. So this is considered there's a Amazing Spider-Man book. Maybe what is it? Tell me out, guys. 316 or something. That's really went off the charts and became a huge collectible. And I shouldn't complain because I have the ones that I bought off the stand. But they were saying that's the first cover appearance of it, right? Well, actually, this is going by their rules of speculation, if you will. Man, I'm trying not to sound bitter. I'm sorry, man. But anyway, this could be considered the first cover appearance of Venom, and that other Spider-Man book is not now. It's all about having your facts right. You know what I mean? So what was so funny is I finally gave it up after over 30 years and got an eBay and actually found a pretty good copy for $40. Mid-range copy, no big deal. So imagine my surprise when I found this one in mint condition in a dollar box. If I had just been patient by a few more months. Yeah, so I love these. I still pull these out. I put up the Who's Who books, the newer ones, there because they were in great condition edition, and I got the beat up ones I read every month. Always pulled them out, checked them out. It's got check marks on it and stuff, and I have them upstairs on a shelf so I can pull them down, you know. So now we're getting into some cool stuff here, right? Hey, morning, Badger. What is this? We have Paulo Costa. Look who woke up way early. What's up, Tim? I'm pretty good, man. We need to get you on here, man. I need to get my life straight. If you back up and watch this on the rerun, I talk about how we went to an amusement park called Carowinds, and then I saw Eric Clear. Been busy on the weekends and Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, so we'll get you on here anytime. Love to do a show with you again, man. Oh yeah, and anyway, I'm up early because we're going to church this morning, so I wanted to hurry up and do this. Ease into my day with my friends, if you will, right? And then Sig is, yeah, Badger's here. What's up, man? Good to see you. Good morning. So it is officially over. Okay, this is officially over. I have officially completed another run, right? And I am just ecstatic about it because this is that series when I talk about, I'm always like, hey man, I could kick myself for not picking this up. I had sampled a few issues. It crossed over with James Robinson's Starman in an odd way, if you will. It crossed over with, I have the poster over here somewhere. I found, when I was digging through my books, I found the retail advertisement where it crossed over with Neil Gaiman's Sandman. And it was 70 issues in an annual. And it ended just in time. We check the date here. Yeah, about a little bit less than a year later, JSA started, and they ended up killing this character, right? In a very glorious way, I must say, right? Very artistic. But anyway, we have the last issue of the 70 issue run, one annual. Vertigo, Sandman Mystery Theater, Matt Wagner, Steve T. Siegel, Guy Davis, and a whole bunch of other people that worked on this, right? Of the pulp comic Sandman Mystery Theater that took place in the 30s up to the 40s. I had a, you know, if you like the Shadow and those pulp characters and stuff, very, very cool. Some very cool stuff in this, right? And I'm up to issue 40 reading straight through, right? So if you watch the last haul I had, I thought I could completed it. I went through there. People were wanting outrageous prices for the last, I don't know, we'll say 10 issues, you know, like 60 some to 70, of course, because it's a low print run. But when you check your price guides, it don't fall into that crap. You'll see that they're just stealing your money. But anyway, number 66, because in the last run, I found every issue. I get home, I get excited. I'm loading up my CLZ app, and I'm like, I missed one. Well, little did I know that I would find that last issue this quick, less than a month. Very happy. You know, anybody that's a collector, I think you feel my joy. You get that feeling I'm talking about. And if you don't, go out and try to finish a run and stuff so you can experience the euphoria of conquering the hunt and finding this. It's great stuff, right? Really don't want to hype the series up anymore. It's just a really solid lead. Like I said, it's Vertigo. So it's actually more about Diane and sorry, man. Anyway, it's more about Sandman and Diane, who will become his wife. It's a lot more about them and the adventures in the background and stuff. Kind of take a back seat. It's just enough to move the book. It's really, really great stuff. All right, somebody knows about this. Yes, Paolo. Yeah, Sandman Mystery Theater is very good. I think Siegel did a very good balance between reader expectations and making it realistic. All of that could have happened to pre-Simon Kirby Sandman. Yeah, yeah. For you guys that don't know, Kirby and Simon, the guys who created Captain America, came in the 40s, and I think they actually got fired from by Stan Lee at what was pre-Marvel, if you will. And but anyway, they came in and they ended up giving him like a superhero outfit. He went from that pulp fedora, you know, trench coat wearing era. They gave him a purple and yellow costume and a sidekick, and you know, did some things to him. And the book sold, but they got caught and actually got fired. You know, they rejuvenated the character. I recently bought the compendium of the Sandman Mystery Theater. I hope they print the second volume. I've got the first one here. I hope they do too. I was following that for a little bit, and I don't know. And as far as that Golden Age Jack Kirby stuff, Paulo Costa, I got it right here on the shelf. Should be right in here, I think. And I found out it also has the, now that I finally cracked it open, it also has the Sandman from the 70s that Kirby did, where it was very Batman 66 feeling. He had his dream cave and his dream whistle and all that stuff. That Neil Gaiman ended up tying into, his book also. Nice. But yeah, it's great stuff there, man. Currently reading the trade back paperback of Sandman Mystery Theater, The Scorpion. Awesome stuff. Hunting down the rest of the series. Yeah, it's one of the things where I feel really good telling people to check out check out anywhere. Check out one of the storylines, right? They're usually 4-part storylines. Pick anyone out, and I think it's going to hook you. That's enough. Like I said, it's cheap and good. Fired by Martin Goodman. Thank you, Fireball. Kirby thought young Stan ratted them out for doing work on the side. Yep, that is it. That is the story. Thank you, sir. Oh, I appreciate that. When it comes to comic book history and stuff like that, I'm like a paper cup with a hole in it. Once I've told the story, it kind of drips out the bottom and then it'll slowly come back to me. But I have a feeling that you have told me in that statement, you've told it to me better than I could have put out, but yeah, Martin Goodman, thank you. And I have no idea. I have no doubt that Stan Lee did it, man. Oh man. Anyway, moving on. So Clive Barker, in the era that I grew up in with the horror and stuff, I kind of grew up with, there was horror movies that you saw on TV. And ironically, the movies that actually scared me were the ones that could feel like they could really happen. ABC had some of these in the early 70s, had like these three or four movies. Just a horror movie made for TV, which is really odd. It was The Babysitter. That one kind of freaked me out because it maybe that's where the urban legend started, or they based it on the urban legend. Who knows when art imitates life and life imitates art. But it was the whole thing of like the babysitter is getting threatening phone calls. She calls the police. They're calling the phone company and saying nobody is calling in. We've checked the records and stuff. And then all of a sudden that phone keeps ringing and keeps ringing, and she finally picks it up, and it's the police, and they're outside, and they're saying, get out of the house. The calls are coming from inside the house. The killer was upstairs trying to get her to go check the baby because he was in the room with her. Then there was Little Ronald, which I have that one based on a book, and it's about a guy a high school student who accidentally killed a little girl, and his mother hid him in a bathroom, and they took the door to the bathroom downstairs, and they put drywall over it and stuff and made it look like just a wall. And he carved a hole in the floor that he could crawl under the house and go in and get food. His mother passes away at the hospital, and this family moves in for $3, and he's going crazy and nuts and stuff, right? So with those movies, Friday the 13th didn't really freak me out. It was fun to freak other people out by going you would freak people out on the bus. You had Nightmare on Elm Street, and then we made it to Clive Barker coming out with the Hellraiser movies. And those freaked me out. I don't know why. He's got a feel to him. Hellraiser 2 came out. I'm a fan. That's the Hellraiser movie I love, right? And then Nightbreed came out. And Nightbreed, I tell you what, was like the best B movie I ever saw. And I've had people getting mad for me calling it a B movie. I've had the VHS tape. Nightbreed, the director's cut, is my favorite Clive Barker movie. So Epic Comics did, I think, 25 issues of a Nightbreed comic, which I'm kind of putting together. And then we had Boom Studios do 12 issues. And there could be other things out there, right? So this is number 3. And I feel like these are going to be a little bit more on target compared to what Epic did. I think what I've read of the Epic run of 25 issues, I think I have like maybe 12 or 13 of them. Fun stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's still horror and fun stuff. And it's in the Epic line of their comics. But I've flipped through this. There's 12 issues. I need to check and see how many more I need, but I checked out 1 or 2 issues. I bought the first one when it came out and just read through it to get the feel for it. And I feel like I kind of like this. It's got a little bit of an indie feel to it, which makes it feel a little bit more predictable, where the other one was, a Marvel refined comic, not with a fine-tooth comb, but, this one feels a little bit more outlaw, I think, right? So number 3, great covers, great art. And I think the art is making a difference, So I got this in trade. I bought something like 6 issues of this 8-issue miniseries, if that's how many it is. I got the variant covers years ago, 2010 or 11. The comic book shop was going out of business, and they just made all their comics 25 cents a piece. And I ended up getting, I think I did a video for $25. I got over $800 worth of variant covers at their prices. They had the price tag on the cover. This is also the same place that if you watched me for years that I kicked myself because I was getting so many comics and trying to get out of there real quick and stuff, but they're about to close and stuff. I went a few times and stuff, right? That I got about 8 miles from the place after I bought $25 worth of comics. And I'm pretty sure I did a video on this way back. I can probably go find it, right? And I was driving, and about 8:30 at night, about 40 minutes after I'd left the place, and we'd stopped at a drive-through to get something to eat or something, right? And it dawned on me that I passed up the first appearance of Harley Quinn for a quarter. It just didn't register. I remember looking at the book thinking it was familiar, but I was in a hurry. And I was like, I must have that. It looks familiar. And I just went on through, and it was the first appearance of Harley Quinn. So I sat on this book here for years, just in the box. It's like, oh, I'll get around to getting the other ones, right? And then as I mentioned it and talked to people, they were like, you really need to check it out. It's really good. You need to read it. It's Ed Brubaker, right? Ed Brubaker is somebody that I'm like, the guy can write, you know. And I followed him since his Prez special back in the early '90s for Vertigo. We'll just leave it at that. If you want to go back and get way early Brubaker stuff, right? Anyway, so I ended up finding a trade at a comic book convention for $5. I get 7 or 8 pages into the trade, and I'm like, this is fantastic. So we'll be reading that when I have time where I'm completely alone, no distractions. But anyway, I found I'm going to complete the set that I have. Like I said, I have 1 through 6. And there's so many various covers, and they don't actually, you have to take them out of the bag and look on the back of it stuff. But the Marvels Project, really good stuff, man. It takes place, like I said, late 30s, and a little bit of government in there, about them getting involved in, you know, the superhero stuff. If you're an Invaders fan of the old school stuff, was it Raw Two Gun Kid? Has Two Gun Kid in it. If you remember Kingdom Come, they had Sandman dying. He was in a hospice. He was in a hospital. His buddy was sitting there with him, and he was telling him his dreams, the things he saw coming, right? Well, they kind of did that with the Two Gun Kid. I hope I'm saying this right. It's early, right? Two Gun Kid is actually a member of the Avengers. The Avengers time traveled. Two Gun Kid, I think he time traveled, and now he is in the 30s, and he's on his deathbed, and he's telling them of the Marvels about to come because he's seen them. And I was like, oh, they took a page out of Kingdom Come, but that's pretty cool, right? So anyway, yeah, I'm going to collect this, finish reading the trade. This might be number 7, maybe. Like I said, multiple covers for each one. Uh, you know, some of these Marvel comics that have been coming out in the last decade or so, I swear the stuff that's in a corner by itself is some of the better stuff they do, you know. So there you go. Yeah. All right. Hey, Skull, what's up? The Boom Nightbreed series is well done. Good to know. Like I said, I just flipped through it just enough, read one issue just enough to make sure I want to get it, finish it up. I've just put off getting it. Have to go catch the rest of the replay. Babe, later, Capallo. Gotcha, man. Have a good day, man. So now I think I have 2 issues, and due to my research, I found out I still have to get 1 more issue, and I could kick myself because I patched it up. 2, 3 issues actually. But I'm a huge Legion fan, and the Legion fandom is really scattered out there. I feel like I never know when is a good time to talk about the Legion and when it's not. When am I going to get a group that's really into it, and when will I not? And I also try not to bog people down with it, because when you start talking about the Legion, they have so many eras and so many characters and things like that. You can really end up going on down the trail, you know. But one of the cool things that happened is there's 2 things I'm really interested in. I think I'm almost completed it until I got home and did my research. I think I might be able to get by without the book, but a lot of people don't realize that I think it was Gary Conway. Jim Starlin got mad at Gary Conway, I believe, and took off and ended up working for DC a little bit. This is in the 70s. I'm trying to think who came in. Somebody, I think might have been Archie Goodwin, I think, right? Well, anyway, Gary Conway was editor-in-chief at Marvel, and you got to understand the editor-in-chief business during the 70s. They had co-editor-in-chiefs, Marv Wolfman and Lynn Wynn, Gary Conway, Roy Thomas, Archie Goodwin. It was a rotating door, okay? And anyway, they messed around with Starlin stuff. He got mad. He took off. and he ended up deciding he was going to do some stuff at the Legion. His buddy Al Milgrom, I believe, was an editor at DC at the time. This is probably when he was creating Firestorm, Al Milgrom or something. Anyway, he gave him a heads up that there might be a little slot here to get into the Legion of Superheroes. So Jim Starlin came in, wrote the story. I think he did it like in a 34-page format, or so he did something different than what they were doing at the time. And of course, they messed with it. And where they messed with it, he wanted his name took off of it. He had some art they used that he had already started doing in the story, messed with the story. And they turn around and he goes by Steve Apollo in a couple of Legion of Superhero books. I think the first one is 239, which I didn't realize that, but there was a murder. And they thought Ultra Boy did it, and Ultra Boy was not the murderer. But they were like, well, somebody, I think it was Chameleon Boy, is like, well, somebody in the Legion killed him, and we will follow up on this. So that was in issue 239. A year later, we get Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes number 250, which I have coverless, that I read when I was a kid, like in 1979 or 80. And Chameleon Boy is the detective on this. Who is the killer? And this is the follow-up issue, the part 2 of the story, number 251. Right. So it is by Jim Starlin, even though it's credited as Steve Apollo. So now I got to back up and find this 239 where the actual murder takes place. But in between that is this storyline, and I didn't realize I was missing an issue that was Earth War by Paul Levitz. And Earth War sort of set the stage for everything over the next 10 years for the Legion, if that hype is real. So there's your Jim Starlin, Legion of Superheroes, geek out, if you will. That's as far down as the trail I want to go, right? But I will say that Matter Eater Lad ended up being taken a little bit more taken, and I'm talking about people who I have talked to in person who like the Legion of Superheroes. I don't know about online and all this stuff, but this is the book where this is the storyline where Matter Eater Lad got taken a little bit more seriously. Okay, he ends up making a sacrifice which works with his powers, but it drove him insane. We'll just leave it at that. Okay. And I was talking about Gru right before I got on here, and I'm glad I got the rant out of the way about the last issue. But there's something about Gru. Gru is the book that I'm not going to say I was a huge fan of it. Sergio Aragonés, Don Martin, Mad Magazine in general, these guys all fell in the umbrella of Mad Magazine in my house. And if you go back and you read some Mad Magazines, I got some framed from the 70s. They were so much more socially relevant than anything I've seen in the last 10 years on how they handled bringing up things and talking about things. It wasn't preachy or anything like that. You know what I mean? They kept the satire going and everything like right there, right? So imagine as a kid that I'm recognizing these little cartoons that were in the corners of all these Mad Magazines. And then all of a sudden I'm watching bloopers, TV's bloopers or practical jokes on TV, and the animation is there. And I'm like, I recognize that. And then all of a sudden I get my appendix taken out in 7th grade, 1985, right? And a lot of people who are friends with my mom and my grandmother, because it was a bad scene, they waited so long to take me to the emergency room, it actually exploded while they were taking it out, is what I was told, right? So I'm in the hospital twice the time that you're supposed to be for an appendicitis, right? And all these people are bringing me comic books, right? I'm like, oh wow. And this is where I discovered Gru. You know what I mean? I don't know if I saw the advertisements back then and stuff. So I'm in there and I've got like issue, I don't know, 7 and 8 or something of Gru magazine. I have them. I remember the covers and stuff, right? So Gru is that comforting read that takes me back to being in a hospital and I'm reading Gru and all this stuff, right? So yeah, I'm always picking these up and I'm like, it may be time to go ahead and just fill this run up, right? I've always had about 20 issues of Gru that I've carried around over the years. And then my brother was buying it. So if he was buying it and we're sharing comics and reading them back and forth, there's no reason for me to buy it. So I found some early issues of Gru, number 6. These are fantastic. And like I said, from what I understand, I knew this much better about 5 years ago, right? But basically, you can go in there and there's a secret message that Sergio Aragonés would hide in Gru. You would have to find the words. They might be backwards in the background or something. And a few issues later, I think in the letters column, I hope I'm telling you guys right, because I'm going by memory, you would eventually find out what the message was. It was usually like some funny proverb or something, like a fortune cookie or something, right? With that humor to it, right? Anyway, here's number 8 with the apes. Good stuff. But like I said, Gru is just fantastic, light reading. Mark Evanier uh, gives so much dialogue to it that this would really satisfy you for the month. Roy Thomas, Mark Evanier, a lot of these guys, they were so dialogue heavy and wordy and things like that that it didn't bog down the story. You got your money's worth. Number 12, that one always eluded me. And number 14. Now, they had a few other issues, but they were so low grade, I wasn't about to waste my time. I don't see Gru Mania hitting any time, even though I've heard ideas of a movie and a cartoon over the years, much with like every franchise in the world since 1989. And then we have a little Thunder Agents here. These are reprints, Hall of Fame Thunder Agents from JC Comics from like 1983. And it's so funny, I never heard of this series of the Thunder Agents. And as soon as I buy one, they're popping up left and right. But unfortunately, it's this issue and the other issue that I have. Now, what's great about this is I almost put this on Instagram, but I didn't think anybody would be that interested in it unless you were there. But I always talk about how like I preferred comics in the 80s being called alternative comics. You know, in the 90s they started being called creator owned or indie comics and things like that, right? So what's great about this is that there's an order form on the back of this, and they refer to them as alternative comics, and it's your Cerebus and all that stuff there. These were alternative comics, right? Um, so that was the creator of stuff. And when you did get a hold of it, I didn't get a hold of very many, but when you did get a hold of it, like Elementals by Bill Willingham and things like that, they had adult themes to them, right? They actually had the sex, and they actually had like some cursing in there and stuff like that. You know, apparently, you know, this was before mature label did not just mean bad words. You know what I mean? Like, you know, these characters were a bit more rounded in a way. And you actually felt taboo reading this. You actually, as a kid, even if you were like in high school, you had a feeling like, oh, I shouldn't be reading this. They had a little bit of an outlaw feel to them. That was a good time, right? We'll just fly through these last two because they're not a big deal. But this finally finishes up Batman and the Outsiders for me. Batman and the Outsiders is the series that when I was 10 years old, like this was going to be my Fantastic Four. This was going to be my Avengers, right? I was able to jump on at number 1, and I had planned on buying this book monthly all the way up until like it was in the 300s and stuff, right? 1983, and remember, I was in 4th grade, right? Little did we know where this was going to go, but I did it monthly, and I hated it because the Olympics came out, and for whatever reason, this one sold out before I could get a hold of it. I remember asking the lady at the drugstore if Batman the Outsiders had come out. And she was like, yeah, isn't it back there? Well, so people bought this. I don't know. But Maxie Zeus versus the Outsiders at the 1984 Olympics. So there you go. Right. I now need one issue of Secret Origins to have the entire run. And of course, it's the Black Hawk issue. I don't know why that one's so hard to find. I don't even know who worked on it, but I actually love this series. I put this series with my Who's for reference material. And of course, as you can see with the Secret Wars, Justice League got a 3-issue sort of run there, right? This is when they were retconning stuff because Wonder Woman there for a while was never part of the original 7, and for some reason they felt Black Canary was appropriate. Makes no sense, just because of power levels and stuff, right? So yeah, as much as I love my DC comics and stuff, I have no problem calling them out on bullshit, you know. And we got the Terrifics annual number 1, and if you believe or not believe or like or dislike James Gunn, he has dropped a hint or two about the Terrifics on Twitter, right? Which surprised me. I have the first, I think, 15 issues of the Terrifics, and this is the annual. I don't know where this fits in, but when I saw this for $1, and like I said, I got all these books discounted. Maybe they came to $77, 77 cents a piece. I don't know. I was like, why not? We'll just see where we're going with this, right? But for you guys that don't remember, Out of Dark Metal, there was no Fantastic Four book for a long time. So out of Dark Metal comes the Terrifics, Plastic Man, Mr. Terrific, Phantom Girl from the Legion, sort of, kinda, with what they did in Metamorpho. And what we were going to have, they just flat out says, like, we're going to have the Terrifics will be the Fantastic Four of the DC universe. Kind of an interesting concept. And of course, they pulled in Alan Moore's Tom Strong in there for you, man of, for you Doc Savage fans there, And I was laughing about this. We're going to end with a pop here in a little bit, right? But we got Spanner's Galaxy #2, a 6-issue miniseries that came out in the 80s. And I am finding out that I really enjoy some of these sci-fi 80s stuff, man. It was the era of everybody being influenced by Star Wars, but this is sort of like Star Wars meets Ice Pirates a little bit, unintentional. It's not meant to be funny. If you like Atari Force and things like this. And this was what's so funny. I had #1 forever. Couldn't find #2, of course, but I ended up finding the rest of the issues, but no #2. So I was very happy to find a #2. But I had a back issues magazine beside of me that had just come in from the mail for my order. And I look over there and it's the 80s. The miniseries of the 80s is what the back issue magazine is talking about. And I'm reading the interview and the backstory of Spanner's Galaxy. And the guy I was like, yeah, I like Star Wars, so I wrote a Star Wars. So if you like Star Wars, throw this in there. It's heavily influenced by Star Wars, but I love how the guy that wrote it, was it Dan Michigan or something? I love how the guy who wrote it owns it. Oh, Nikolai Cootie, and it's got some fantastic artwork by Tom Mandrick. And that's where I get the feel of Ice Pirates from. Some of these designs and the looks, but just a fun little series, man. I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, I think I got some good stuff to show here towards the end for everybody. Good morning. Oh, Eric Breen's here. What's up, brother? Awesome. Been listening while at work. Awesome. That's fantastic, man. Good to see you. Good morning. Um, check the time here. Yeah, we're good on time. So anyway, I've about laughed with this right now. I am a fan of Frank Miller. I am very forgiving of some of the stuff that he's put out. And I also understand that he's getting older and he's had problems. And it's not about making excuses. You know what I mean? But Frank Miller has done stuff that I absolutely loathe, but I didn't hate him. I think he's bullshitted a lot, but he's always had this feeling that comics was an outlaw. And he's done the talk, but there's a lot of stuff he walked the walk. There's also interpretations of his work that I kind of laugh at, but that's what makes it great work. It gets an emotional reaction out of you, whether you love it or hate it. And it also is sort of open interpretation. And I've really been getting a kick out of some of the, I had to do a little research to see if people were telling the truth. But like, I've seen where Frank Miller has said that he was, Dark Knight Returns in the 80s was his idea of an anarchist in Ronald Reagan's America. And I'm like, okay. And then I also have been hearing things about how Alan Moore was trying to write Rorschach as a right wing nut, and people were supposed to loathe him, and he was a little bit surprised that everybody found him very honorable, even though he was a nutcase and stuff, right? I'd never heard that until the last few years ago, yet I have found a quote or two by Alan Moore that I'm like, okay, I can see him going with that, because I've always seen things where he has read in the voice of Rorschach, and there was a lot of enthusiasm there. You know what I mean? Like, I've never really heard that until the last few years ago, right? So when I pick up Frank Miller books, I believe it or not, I actually get a bit of some people are very decisive, right? Like, I'm just like, it's just a comic, man. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's cool, man. Luckily, I haven't really been hit with it live or anything like that, but I've gotten a weird message or two and had a weird talk with some people in the real world. So I'm sure it's political and I could give a shit. I don't know. But anyway, Frank Miller, Xerxes. Um, this is, if you're into 300, this is the story of Xerxes. And we had the second 300 movie, which I have them here. 300, the first 300 movie I thought was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. And then they had the second one, which I was like, okay, that's cool. And then we have the story of the main bad guy, Xerxes, here, a miniseries. So I found issue 1 and 2 in dollar bins, which really confused me. I mean, I know this isn't like some big, huge key book and stuff, but, finding Frank Miller books in dollar bins is really wild for me, in my opinion. So we got some I was telling you about some of the DC books you can get in the 70s that aren't superhero that I think are fantastic. Before we do that, we don't have any comments going on, but before we do that, let's go to the 80s for a minute, because this is coming to the stack here, and I actually forgot this was in here, but I have a great fondness for the Marvel New Universe. I have a live stream where during the pandemic or whatever, I just sat down and talked about it for an hour and a half. And believe it or not, the video has not gone viral by any means, but there's consistent comments that come through it where people pick up and find it every few weeks and stuff, right? So there's a lot of people that are very forgiving and very, I don't know if forgiving is the word, but they're very nostalgic, or they actually have a lot of love for the new universe. I appreciate the universe for what it was at the time. I also had to come with peace there for a little bit because with my allowance and my budget, I missed a lot of great books, making sure I tried to pick up everything of the new universe. I mean, this was Marvel Comics missing starting a new universe because you missed out in 1961. You better hop on board. And of course, I was right there on it. So anyway, for what the new universe was, and after the last, like, since about 2015, and I've had people tell me even longer for some people, the current comics that have been coming out over the years have really started making the new universe look like Shakespeare. Okay. I've always ran across people over the years who collected dead universes. Now it's gotten more sparse as time has gone on, but the 90s and early 2000s, there were people that were collecting the Ultraverse, Defiant Comics, all these comic book companies that went out of business, Eclipse, they were getting what they call dead universes. I thought that was very cool. It's a niche collecting and stuff, right? And I think I'm going to do that with the new universe, right? I have pulled out the box of my new universe books, got in there to see what I have. I got probably like 95% of the series. I was surprised I didn't have my Kickers Incorporated #1. I don't know where that went. I had the first 4 or 5 issues. I don't know where my Night Mask issues went, nor my Merc. I probably got rid of them years, but the rest of them, I have a whole bunch of them, right? And the new universe, I come to find out, actually finally started becoming profitable. But Jim Shooter, who started this whole thing, had left. And I'm finding out people are finally saying that they just got rid of the universe despite it being profitable finally because of his Jim Shooter thing and they hated his guts. I'm like, that's kind of mean. So basically, the new universe ended with a 4-issue miniseries called The War, prestige format, square bound books. Tom Mandrick writing. Let me make sure who the writer is. Yeah, Doug Murray. And this is like solid 80s. I mean, when the 80s ended, there's a few books that were like, this is just your 80s, right? And there was a big war going on in the, like it says in the universe, and a lot of your characters got drafted, and we get to see they're all in here. The Star Child from Starbrand, DP7, Cyforce. We kind of, this was supposed to be like put a lid on it, right? And I had issue 1, and I thought it was a 2-issue miniseries, so I get issue 2. Then I'm like, oh no, it's 3 issues. So I finally get issue 3. I finally catalog these. I finally look at them. I finally take my new universe box serious. It's 4 issues, so I still have one more before I can sit down and read it to see how all this ended. And of course, New Universe has survived past its ending there. Mark Grunwald brought Quasar into the new universe and brought back an antibody from the DP7 and brought back the Star brand proper and stuff, right? Now, the last 2 set of books, I'm going to leave the Kirby stuff for very last here. I'm very excited about finding these 2. And I don't know what's going on because these are 2 legends. And yes, they have passed away. And I have read their stuff for years. Joe Kubert, I didn't really come around to until about 1982 when they had a Justice League JSA team up where they fought the crime syndicate that crossed over with All Star Squadron in my stack of Captain Carrot and the Amazing Zoo Crew books as well as when I was buying these, right? Fantastic Jack Kirby covers on the 209 Justice League number 209 is where it started, and I think it was like All Star Squadron 16 or so. But those were the set of books where I'm like, man, I'm a collector. I had been buying my own comics since 1979, and before that, and even then, I was reading the stepdad and uncle stuff, heavy metal magazines. But it was that crossover where I looked around and I saw I was taking care of this stuff better than anybody else was, getting sort of organized and trying to stack them. No comic book boxes, no Bags and Boards. It's 1982. You know, I didn't even know those things existed at the time, to be honest. And all I know is I've got these stacks where I'm trying to save this paper from getting crumpled up and stuff, right? I've got a Machine Man #1 by Jack Kirby that I pulled out of a toy box. It's all crumpled. And now when I find certain kind of books damaged, I feel like I'm like, well, this got crumbled in a toy box. I would have to, I would have to flip over OMAC #1 so I could go to sleep because the cover freaked me out by Jack Kirby and stuff, right? Anyway, so didn't mean to go on a tangent and stuff, but it took me a little while to come around to Joe Kubert art after you're like seeing Kirby and George Perez. And then I'm seeing these All-Star Squadron books where they're real scribbly and loose and everything like that. But then I started noticing that it's the angles and the way to, I started really studying. Tom Palmer is the artist inker that really made me study the art of comic books and stuff, right? So I started paying attention to the little nuances and stuff, right? And these are two perfect examples, right? So I love Tor. I've got the epic oversized miniseries that I need to complete. This is creator owned. If you see the Joe Kubert school of advertisements, sometimes he throws in Tarzan, sometimes he throws in Tor, but Tor, these are so well written too. I don't know how he learned to write so well, but these are caveman stories that are fantastic. Tor is different because when it comes to survival, unfortunately, you have to be very selfish. And Tor figured out, like, if I want to survive, I want to cut my bangs. If I want, and then what makes him sort of a hero, even though it's not a hero story, is that he will put himself out there sometimes after he thinks about it to save other people, more of emotion or anything like that, right? And so these are set well in primitive times, but there's little things about humanity that he pulls out that makes Tor the hero because he's able to step above. I'm very interesting reads. And at the same time, he fights a lot of like ugly monsters and cavemen and witch doctors and things like that. And this is what I'm talking about, right? If you see his art, this is very underwhelming to me, very odd. But then you'll see something like this that he does, and like, my God, that is a perfect turtle. Look at that fluid and the movement and stuff and everything like that. He is very good at drawing pictures that look odd because this is in the moment. He captures motion in one little second. You know what I mean? Like, that's why it looks odd, because it's in the moment. He has captured a snapshot. And in my opinion, as of right now, when it comes to drawing action and stuff, Joe Kubert is right on Jack Kirby's ass. Where, like, I don't want to call him the #2 man, but yeah, there we go. All right. And then this was one of the books I've talked years about, like Jack Kirby scared the hell out of me. And I probably have the book in this bottom shelf here, the very coverless book. And I finally found the actual book with a cover and I keep them together. But there was Jack Kirby got put on the Losers, Our Fighting Forces at DC in the 70s. And he was, of course, in World War II. We're winding down. So let me get a cup of drink here. Oh, what do we got here? Little Jimmy. Collecting dead universes. That's a cool idea. Something finite. Yeah. And my favorite dead universe to collect, I think I have them all almost, is the Defiant universe. But anyway, not to lose off here. But anyway, when I was a kid, the splash page was this distorted, very surreal, and to me, grotesque with those big blocks and stuff. I remember I'm 4 or 5 years old. And this Kirby page just scared the crap out of me. And at the bottom of it had demons and these secondary pinks and blue colors and stuff that just, it was just very ugly to me. It was very ugly. And what was very ugly, it got this emotional response to me where I'm like, it just made me feel yucky and, threatening and stuff, right? Years later, I still have the book. I could not let it go. I was like, I got to remember this and stuff, right? So anyway, I ended up getting 2 more issues of The Losers by Jack Kirby, because Jack Kirby has done so much stuff. And so it's amazing with his body of work when you compare how much he has done to what is actually celebrated. It's just a fraction of what he's done. I mean, I don't even think it compares to the tip of an iceberg, what you see on top and what's under the ocean. And some of these issues are just fantastic because they're exactly what he served the story, he served the book. And at the end of the day, Jack Kirby was one of us. So he had, I've heard many tales of a lot of his inspiration came from the fact that he read sci-fi. He would have sci-fi books and sci-fi magazines just planted on bookshelves around his studio, his room, and things like that, right? Plus, he was in actual combat in World War II and stuff, right? So, yeah, I don't know why they didn't do every issue with a Jack Kirby cover, but who knows? But here's some Our Fighting Forces, 2 issues of Jack Kirby greatness and stuff, right? Really unappreciated series. Seems like it was collected at some point, but I don't know. So let me do a little scan here. I think that's about it. So I'm going to get off here. I'm going to go get dressed. I've already showered and shaved this morning. The family is going to church this morning. Hopefully we'll have a little lunch as well and stuff like that. So everybody, thanks for popping in. Thumb up, sub, subscribe, send it out. Jump on my Instagram as Howler Mouse. Go check out my YouTube actual page. There should be some links maybe to find me elsewhere if you're into that. And thanks for spending Sunday morning with me, guys. And for you guys that are coming in on the rewind, appreciate you. Really do, man. I've been doing this a long time, and it's always good to have a place just to talk comics with like-minded people. So later, guys, and be excellent to each other.